What's up? No, let me stop. What's good, y'all? Hope y'all doing well. We back with another YouTube video. Hope y'all are feeling blessed. Today's topic is going to be local versus global versus sports specific. I probably dove into it just with a different name or different title, but this has a slightly different label, and we're gonna get a little bit more in depth with it. But it's basically, like I said, some of the same messaging as far as no matter what you're going through, condition, an injury, just something that's been nagging, find a way to circumvent it, find a way to then implement it into your training eventually to get over the hump. You just got to do it. So let's dive into it. As far as the phrase itself, fortunate to be around a lot of very knowledgeable and wise people, mentors, colleagues, and things of that nature, but they actually got it from somebody else that they learned from. I feel like that's a majority of the healthcare industry as well, just learning a lot of the things that may seem new have been out, but now there's a little bit more research behind it, or there's a little bit more just diving into that specific thing. And there's some individuals that specialize solely in that thing. But anywho, as far as let's just start with the local aspect. So from a local standpoint, dealing with health and dealing with our body, a lot of the times if we're athlete or even just somebody who just wants to move freely, regardless if they want to play a sport, when it comes to local, it's a specific centralized region. So let's say for this example, we'll use the elbow. Let's say the individual has had a tear in their UCL. Maybe they had a past of playing baseball, they were a pitcher, and they did tennis and things of that nature. So it was maybe a lot of stress for them, and they were probably underprepared for the volume that they were, doing this motion or backhand motion, whatever the case is. So what happens at a local standpoint? Locally, you have that injury. The big part of it that doesn't get discussed, but is definitely a huge piece of the pie, is the psychological factors that go within that. You have that bout, or you have that episode or moment, and then sometimes it could be repeated. Sometimes it could be a one-off, but it's very rare. But there's normally a lot of things that lead up to it, and the psychological aspect of it is, okay, now I need to do something about it. What happens? You normally are sidelined. You aren't doing the things that you want to do. You then want to go seek an opinion, or even a second or a third opinion. And what's going to be common recommendations or common knowledge? Rest, ice, elevate, lay off it, don't do anything. And a lot of people are going to abide by those instructions, and then this is where we run into loops and cycles, and it's probably a space that we don't need to be into. So other parts of the psychological factors are going to be, you are taken out of or taken away from the thing that you may enjoy, that may give you, that freedom, or feeling liberated, or getting the sweat, getting the endorphins, getting all these, positive chemicals, throughout your body from doing that movement. People also tend to get depressed, that's a thing that they may connect with people in their community or with their friends or family. That could be the 1 or 2 hours a week that they don't have to think about work, they don't have to think about crazy responsibilities and things of that nature. So those are the attachments that normally come with that, just from a local standpoint, just from it being an elbow. Use whatever body part or region that applies to you, or that's common to you. So with that, we get hyper focused on that. We listen to that advice. And then now this is where we transition into global. If we were to pay attention to, well, hey, I'm getting this recommendation. I've been a person that for the most part is fairly active, but now I'm not moving. You now have two things you're overcoming rather than just one. Before it was just the elbow. Now it's the elbow, but I'm also not in the same condition that I was when I was playing or moving. My metabolic, health is a little bit compromised. I mean, immune health is a little bit compromised. You're not getting the same circulation throughout your body. You're not fortifying yourself. You're not with the same amount of muscle tissue that you had from the initial diagnosis, if you will. More times than not, if it's a little sprain or, something here and there, but if we're talking like fractures, tears, those recommendations are going to be like, lay off of it for 3 months, 6 months. Can you imagine for somebody that is active and moving, taking out all that time away from moving their body and doing all the other general patterns and qualities that can help them in so many ways? So going from that local region of the elbow to now global, the recommendation that I have, and a lot of people like within the space that I'm close with, I think it definitely is something that people of the general population or athletes in general need to take heed to, is to continue to move your body. If we're only talking about this one region of the elbow, the right elbow, for example, your left arm still is useful. Your left leg and your right leg are still useful. And you definitely can benefit from it in so many ways. Back to the psychological aspect, you're still moving your body, you're still getting those positive, happy chemicals. You're still, like I said, getting that blood flow throughout your body, which is going to help heal and expedite the process or the healing process. The if I were to even just go solely into just the cross educational effect, that's its own thing that you could potentially research. But simplifying is basically forget the left and right leg. If I only had this affected side from that injury, and I wanted to train this left side, whether it be a bicep curl, flexing, whether it be tricep extensions, extending, whether it be a overhead press, whether it be a horizontal press, a row, just training that side and recovering from it properly with proper volume and whatever is appropriate for you, there's a 20-30% chance that you are positively expediting the process of healing this right side without even training or doing anything on this right side. So that's just kind of the synergy in how our body works. So that's just talking about the arm. Now, if we're doing things that are beneficial and conducive for our legs as well, you're once again still increasing that blood flow throughout the body. You're still doing things that are going to get you stronger, still maintain and increase your muscle mass because your legs are still functioning and still can benefit from it. So that's the whole idea of kind of the global aspect. Still can do core-based training, still can work on the smaller muscle groups, intrinsic muscle groups, and things of that nature. And that's going to be very, very positive for your healing process. So that's the second element. And then the third element is if you do want to get back to sport, you do want to get back to the certain things that you enjoy that are active and at a certain level or speed. That's the missing element to it. Is first you find the entry point, you find what is tolerable for that specific instance. It could just be doing a shortened range of motion is tolerable. Then when you get to a point where you start to get stronger in certain ranges and patterns and you can go full range of motion, then you can start to work on capacity. Okay, if you can only hit 2 or 3 reps of a certain movement and you only can handle maybe 1 set before you fatigue or before you start to give out or whatever the case is, then you start building up in volume to where it's tolerable. You're building up the muscle endurance, building up the fibers and things of that nature. After you get through the range of motion and strength in that regard, and then also capacity, then it could just be getting it genuinely stronger. Okay, I was able to handle this amount of load. Now I can handle 1 time, 2 times, whatever body weight or whatever you're putting into that limb or to that region. And then the last element really would be like speed. Once you start to put more velocity into that specific given area, that's when you're going to put some of the highest forces that it can tolerate or handle. So that's the sport specific side of things. So if it's from let's take the example of the elbow or even the elbow, we'll continue that going. So if I'm in this motion and I can at least be able to tolerate whatever, if it's a cross-body extension, whatever you want to do to replicate it. It doesn't have to be super specific as long as you're training the tissues that support it. But it could start out with, like I said, the range of motion, getting up the capacity and the strength, and then being able to do it in like almost like an elastic kind of motion. The more you can tolerate that, the more you're going to be able to get closer or be closer back to playing that sport, because it's going to resemble the speed, the proprioception, kind of where you need to be in space, how you can handle those certain motions, the core musculature that's going to be required for you to be able to do that motion and be able to bounce back, be agile, things of that nature. That's basically how you can look at it or go about the continuum from local, which is where we're normally really focused on, global, which is always going to keep us in the game, whether we're injured or not. And then if you want to take it further to a point where you are doing it at high speeds, doing stuff that not necessarily has to resemble exactly what you're doing in sport, but the qualities, the explosiveness, the power, the speed that is going to transfer into that sport. You do those things, you're going to keep your foot in the door. You're going to be able to keep yourself in the game at all times. And I kind of want us to look at it in that regard, because a lot of the time we get this advice where it's just like, yeah, no, rest, don't do anything. And I'm like, bro, if somebody already was in that kind of rut, you just put them more in a rut. And the biggest thing is to find solutions to the problem, not just think of more issues and more problems. You're just creating another problem by staying on the sidelines when you could put yourself in position to be right back where you need to be. And also, it's just one of those things, it helps you with your own problem solving. You start figuring out ways, creativity and using your imagination to be able to be like, okay, well, I can't do this, but I can do this. That's literally as simple as it is. It makes me think about sports all the time. I always go back to basketball, but regardless, in this case, I have a really good example or analogy for it. But there's stories of people that, they injured their strong, dominant hand, and maybe 6 months, they learned how to use this offhand, and now they're really ambidextrous. And that helps when they're back to being healthy because now the defender doesn't know which side they're going to go to. Even for just general population, whatever the case is, same thing. Maybe you do learn, I don't know if there's going to be a transfer into knowing how to write with your left hand or brush your teeth with your, left hand or whatever the case is, but it can be a useful skill or useful tool in some capacity. Or even just in general population, being able to maybe slow down. Maybe that was needed, reassess your volume, reassess how you train, reassess how you go about things, and that could be a visual or a lens or perspective that was needed for you. Now you can, one, have that experience. You're a bit more wiser about how you're going to go about this for the long term, and there you go, pays some dividends. So just wanted to share that. I think it definitely is beneficial to hear that information because it's not super widespread unless it's like within communities that I've seen. But yeah, if you are in that space or in that rut, definitely either do more research or get with somebody that can empower you and liberate you to get moving right away, especially if it is something post-surgery. Of course, still want to stay within the parameters of certain protocols, but once you get that green light, if it's a couple days or even a week or so, get moving. And I really mean that. It's going to be very beneficial for you in all facets. So let me know if that made sense to y'all. Let me know if that's, a concept that interests y'all in finding ways like specifically for your condition or your ailment, your injury or whatever the case is. If that's something, whatever the case is, excuse me, if that's something that interests you and you want to get a little bit more specific, let me know in the comments. But that's all I got. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'm going to catch y'all next time. Peace.